Florence, Italy. It is the birthplace of the Renaissance, a city of art, history, and romance. But for nearly 20 years, beneath the beauty, this city held a dark secret. Between 1968 and 1985, a shadow stalked the lovers' lanes of the Italian countryside. He struck 8 times, he killed 16 people, and he did it with a terrifying consistency that baffled the world. They called him Il Mastro, the Monster of Florence. He is the closest thing Europe has ever seen to the Zodiac killer. He taunted police with his precision. He mutilated his victims with surgical skill. And just like the Zodiac, he was never caught. But this isn't just a story about a killer. It's a story about an investigation that went so wrong, it became a crime in itself. We're talking about lost evidence, conspiracy theories involving satanic cults, and a police force so desperate, they arrested the journalist who was trying to solve the case. With new interest exploding in 2025, it's time to reopen the file on Italy's darkest mystery. Who was the monster? And is he still out there watching? Part 1. The Impossible Gun. To understand this nightmare, you have to understand the weapon. In every single one of the double murders, the ballistics matched perfectly. It was a Beretta Series H 22 caliber pistol, a reliable, quiet weapon. But the gun itself isn't the only clue. It was the ammunition. The killer used Winchester Series H bullets. These are copper-coated bullets that stopped being manufactured in the mid-1960s. This detail is crucial. It means the killer wasn't buying new ammo. He was dipping into a finite, vintage stash he likely acquired years before the killing spree began. For years, police thought the murders started in 1974, but when they ran the ballistics they found a match that shattered their timeline. The gun had been used before in 1968. In that first case, a woman and her lover were shot in a car. The woman's husband, a Sardinian immigrant named Stefano Meal, confessed to the crime. He went to prison. The police closed the book. Justice was served. But 6 years later, in 1974, while Meal was sitting in a jail cell, the gun killed again. And then again, in 1981 and 1982. This was the moment the investigation broke. The police realized the 1968 confession was either false, or Meal had an accomplice who kept the gun. This realization birthed the Sardinian Trail, the theory that the gun was being passed around a clan of Sardinian immigrants living in Tuscany. But despite raids, wiretaps and interrogations, the gun was never found. Part 2. The Picnic Companions. By the late 80s and early 90s, the pressure on the Italian police was suffocating. The public was terrified. The tourism industry was taking a hit. They needed a monster, and they found one in a man named Pietro Pacciani. Pacciani was straight out of a horror movie casting call. He was a violent, angry farmer with a history of domestic abuse and a previous conviction for murder in the 50s. He fit the profile perfectly. But the prosecution had a problem. Pacciani didn't seem smart enough to pull off these surgical, stealthy executions alone. So, the police invented a new theory. They claimed Pacciani wasn't working alone. He was the ringleader of a group of creepy locals they called the Picnic Companions. According to the state, these men would meet up, drink wine, and hunt couples for sport. The trial was a media circus. It was televised across Italy. Witnesses told bizarre, often contradictory stories. And in 1994, Pacciani was convicted. But here is the reality. There was no DNA match, no fingerprints, and most importantly, they never found the gun. The conviction was overturned on appeal. Pacciani was set to be retried, but in 1998, he was found dead in his home. Official cause, heart failure, but many believe he was silenced. With Pacciani dead, the case should have gone cold. Instead, it went insane. It's a maddening turn of events, isn't it? If you appreciate these kinds of deep dives, where we cut through the rumors to find the facts, please, take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot, and it ensures we can keep bringing these unsolved cases into the light. Now, let's look at the cold, hard reality of where this case stands today. Part 3. The Satanic Panic when the Picnic Companions theory started to crumble. The chief inspector in charge, Michele Giuttari, pivoted to something even darker. He theorized that Pacciani wasn't just a serial killer, he was a hitman for a satanic sect. The theory went like this. Wealthy, elite members of Florentine society were ordering these murders to obtain trophies, specifically the female organs excised from the victims for use in black masses. This is where the investigation left reality behind. Enter Mario Spezi. Spezi was a legendary crime reporter who had covered the monster case since day one. He, along with American thriller author Douglas Preston, began their own investigation. They looked at the facts. They found zero evidence of a satanic cult. Instead, they circled back to the original Sardinian trail and identified a suspect the police had overlooked. They were doing real police work, and the authorities hated them for it. In a twist that sounds like fiction, the police tapped Mario Spezi's phone. They followed him, and in 2006, they arrested him. The police accused the journalist of being part of the murder plot purely to silence his investigation. He spent 23 days in prison before the charges were thrown out as a judicial hallucination. It was a desperate attempt to save face, but it proved one thing: the authorities were more interested in protecting their reputation than catching the real killer. Part 4. Conclusion. So, what is the truth? Modern criminologists and cold case experts largely agree there was no satanic cult. The picnic companions were likely just low-level criminals bullied into false testimony. The reality is likely much simpler and much scarier. The monster was probably a lone wolf, a man with deep rage, knowledge of the woods, and a stash of vintage bullets. A man who was likely interviewed by police early on and dismissed. In 2025, with advanced DNA technology, there is still hope. Evidence from the crime scene's envelopes sent to prosecutors, tent fabric, shell casings still exists. If the Italian government allows Othram or similar labs to test it, we might finally get a name. But until then, the hills of Florence hold their secret. The Beretta 22 is still out there, rusting in a field or hidden under floorboards. And the monster, if he's still alive, he's an old man now. Perhaps he walks past the tourists in the city center, listening to them talk about the Netflix series based on his life, smiling because he knows he got away with it.
Case closed on this chapter, but the world is full of unsolved questions. Join the investigation by subscribing now.